Imagine looking down to see a big, hairy spider crawling up your arm. Imagine the panic, fear, torment, your brain screaming at you to get that spider off of you. Even if you've got the biggest case of arachnophobia, you're still going to swat away that spider. Why? Because of the way you feel when it's crawling on you. But what if that feeling didn't go away once the spider had been swatted away? You've still got that horrible, sickening, dreadful feeling, and then it slowly starts to get worse. Out of sheer desperation, you've already touched your biggest fear. So what else would you do to make that feeling go away? Would you scream? Would you lash out at someone? Would you turn to drugs and alcohol? Would you hurt yourself? How long could you withstand that anguish until you gave up? And that is my best analogy for what it's like to live with mental illness. Mental health is the forgotten epidemic of our time. Until very recently, even the concept of mental health wasn't taken very seriously. Nevertheless, according to Mental Health America, 57% of adults with mental illness, over 26 million individuals, receive no treatment. And it's a damn shame, because for people who suffer from depression, anxiety, PTSD, and other ailments, the only treatment they have is access to music. From the very first notes of Black Sabbath, the concept of going mad, hallucinating that the devil himself is standing above you, is seared into the very foundation of heavy metal. And even 50 years later, the existential dread expressed by Ozzy Osbourne's voice and Tony Iommi's iconic tritone is one of the most accurate representations of what it feels like to lose your mind. And in the following decade, thrash really embraced the idea of going mad. Metallica recorded tracks like Welcome Home Sanitarium, Anthrax unleashed Madhouse, and Slayer ripped Criminally Insane. And we all know Mike Muir would have never been institutionalized if he'd just gotten that Pepsi. And alongside thrash, 80s metal delved further into the darkest sides of the mind with grindcore. This may be an unpopular hot take, but in my opinion, the best metal lyric of all time is "You Suffer, but why?" It's pure philosophy on the level of Nietzsche or even Buddha. It's the most existential probe into the mysteries of human misery, directly confronting the realities of mental illness and that there's not always an obvious answer to why someone may be suffering. Another band that's really been able to capture the spirit of persisting through mental illness is Korn. You listen to Falling Away From Me or Daddy and you can really feel plagues of depression and PTSD. You can feel it in Soundgarden's Fell on Black Days, Linkin Park's Crawling, Nine Inch Nails' Hurt, and more recently the entire Gray Skies and Electric Light album by Woods of Ypres. One more song I'd like to talk about specifically is I Don't Wanna Be Me by Typo Negative. It's one of the band's simplest tracks, and it's sort of the metal equivalent of Radiohead's Creep or Beck's Loser, in that it's an unapologetically catchy ode to self-loathing. But the interesting difference, in my opinion, is that Creep and Loser made Radiohead and Beck famous, while Peter Steele was already a metal icon when he sang I Don't Wanna Be Me. So in that sense, it's a much more accurate representation of mental illness, because it doesn't just go away, even if you've achieved all your dreams and became a global sex god. Unfortunately, that does bring us to the musicians we've lost over the years. Mental illness has taken musicians like Wendy O. Williams, Ronnie Montrose, and Chris Cornell, and like the death of Robin Williams, it felt like Chester Bennington's passing completely stopped the earth from spinning. And with his death came an army of trolls who non-stop commented, "Oh, he's rich, he's famous, he's a rock star, what does he have to complain about?" It's proof of the fundamental misunderstanding that a lot of people still have about mental illness, and how schools have failed to provide or encourage meaningful discussions about the issue. Depression, anxiety, other mental disorders, the truth is it's like diabetes or cancer. It can be caused by genetic conditions or environmental conditions. And to anyone who said that Chris Cornell or Chester Bennington were cowards for taking their own lives, what's really cowardly is sitting behind your keyboards and spouting off knee-jerk opinions instead of actually facing the issue yourself and attempting to understand the nature of mental illness. But no, that's a little too heavy for you, isn't it? And the truth about mental illness is that it doesn't matter what things you have, because mental illness turns all the things in your life to garbage. And the term mental illness itself can be a cop-out, because what do you call it when your pancreas doesn't produce the right amount of chemicals? You call it diabetes. But what do you call it when your brain doesn't produce the right amount of chemicals? Mental illness. Doesn't completely make sense, does it? You can actually see the physical properties of so-called mental illness while taking a CAT scan, so maybe it's time to address these conditions by their physical properties rather than just how they make you feel. Thankfully though, metal has a huge group of amazing mental health advocates.
Whether it's suicide or the opioid problem that's going on right now, people don't want to feel. Why do they not want to feel? Let's get to the bottom of that. Let's get to the bottom of why there is a rise in not only PTSD, but severe depression across the board. I mean, I suffer from manic depression, which means I rise and fall, I crash and I burn. I've got the practice and I've got the people to talk to so I can keep myself from really breaking myself against that wall.
Mm-hmm. And it's a blessing and a curse. You just have to learn how to wrestle with it, how to deal with it. And thankfully over the years, through being open and having conversation about it and seeking alternative therapies and exercise and diet even, you learn how to manage it.
There's a stigma around it and people try to hide it, that they're hurting. Tell someone, a lot of people are compassionate.
Don't wait till after the fact. Don't wait till the funeral. Don't wait till the person's already in the ground. And if anybody sees people who are in a state of distress, who are struggling, who are continuing to try to fight the fight, to be an advocate for them, to go ahead and to involve themselves in some way, to try and make something good happen before nothing else can.
And groups like Music Cares and the U-Rock Foundation. Look, mental health can be a difficult topic to tackle, but as somebody who's suffered from depression and anxiety for most of his life, I can tell you there's a silver lining. Mental illness gives you a wider breadth of emotional intelligence. Mental illness gives you insight into the greatest works of art. Mental illness gives you a unique perspective. Mental illness gives you a stronger, creative voice. Mental illness gives you gratitude for the little things. Mental illness gives you exceptional perseverance. And, in my opinion, surviving another day makes you a badass motherfucker. I wanted to record this episode now because with quarantine and isolation, people like me, and I'm sure a lot of you out there, are having a really tough time getting through this. But on a day-by-day basis, sometimes talking about it is the best thing that you can do. And remember that every day that you make it is another little victory. And a lot of little victories make for big trophy collections.